Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Don't Forget to Tap. This is my podcast about journaling my jujitsu through journey and being new and absolutely sucking at it, but having a lot of fun along the way. Um, so, for this episode, this is a very important episode for me personally. It's one that is very satisfying to make, one that's holds a lot of value to me, a lot of lessons learned in a very short amount of time. And it's been like 2 weeks since I've given you guys an update since my Washington D.C. training, and obviously I've been training in that time frame and everything, but I haven't gotten a chance to update. Excuse me. So, drinking some coffee. It's nice and early in the morning. The best and the worst time to record episodes because that's when all the sinus stuff is at its worst. So, if you hear me making weird noises, it's probably just my body trying to expel all the evil phlegm and mucus that's in my body every single morning. So, bear with me. But so anyway, for this episode, we'll be talking about a few things. Training when you don't feel like it, being a really good training partner, or what some of the things, what it looks like to be a good training partner. As I'm continuing to try and learn that, making new people feel welcome. I'm still a new person, so definitely can relate. But when like a new person comes, some of the things that I've just really been trying to embody to try and make them feel welcome. Learning new techniques from your coach or professor, but also just some tips and tricks that I've learned when they're demonstrating the technique or when they're teaching you the technique. Some things that I've learned that seem to help me pick it up a little bit, and somehow I still don't know it all, but just like little things that have helped me memorize a little bit more than I do on other occasions. Celebrating personal milestones. Got a new milestone that I hit myself that I'll share with you guys. And then the seal is, I broke the seal, guys. I put it out there that I have a jujitsu podcast, and so hopefully, if anybody is listening to this, for a year, this podcast has been kind of a secret, a little bit. And so, yeah, really excited to get into all that with you guys and everything. So let's get going. So, first and foremost, training when you don't feel like it. I would dare say that we have all been there. We all know what that feels like to go to training when you don't feel like it, or maybe you haven't yet. Maybe you're new, and maybe like the motivation is fresh. I know when I first started jujitsu, my motivation was so high because I thought it was just like this new cool aspect of my life, and so I always felt like going right, um, until my body would take like a thrashing or something like that, and then I was like, I'm not as motivated right now, and so the motivation's not always going to be there. Um, I will tell you, last night I did not feel like going to class. And it's not that I don't want to go to class. It's just that like when the day kind of beats you up a little bit, sometimes the last thing you want to do is go put yourself back in like a focus zone where you've got to focus. Cause a lot of times I just turn my brain off and like I go, sit on the couch, watch an episode of TV, or I'll go to the gym and work out, and I can kind of just turn my brain off. And in jujitsu, I've got to kind of keep that on a little bit. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about it is I can't just turn my brain off. I've actually got to kind of sharpen it a little bit. Um, I think the word that most people like to use, I'm a big fan of Jocko Willenick and stuff like that. And, he's got his podcast, he's got his books and everything. And he's a big jujitsu practitioner as well. And, motivation, one thing that I've kind of taken away, and I've heard this from so many people, so many aspects of my life, but motivation is so temporary, and it's not going to get you through the hard times, right? It'll get you through sometimes, but I don't think that motivation will get you through the hard times. I think discipline is what will get you through the times when you don't feel like doing something. It's discipline and consistency. And I think discipline is consistency in a lot of ways because it's just showing up whenever you don't feel like it. No matter the circumstances, you show up. And that's kind of become, I was telling my coach and professor last night, one of, some of my coach and professors, that a big kind of life mantra is just been just show up. And it's been such a reoccurring theme in my life of the importance of just showing up. And so if you had a good day, just show up. If you had a bad day, just show up. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you have going on, just show up. And I think that that is held me accountable in a lot of ways. Some of the practical tips that I would say, as far as like staying committed to training, I think a lot of it, just like everything else, I talk about this in my military journey, and, people that are joining the military, not to go down that road or anything, but I think it's not if, it's when it gets hard, and it will get hard. And I think at some point the cool factor of it is going to wear off. Like, it's not just this new cool thing you're doing and you're talking about, and, you're getting to, uh, just it's this new aspect of your life, and it's a lot of fun to share with people, and it's really good for you. But I think when that wears off, underneath it, you have to know why. Like, why are you doing this? Because you got to understand that jujitsu is like one of the safest environments. The coaches and coaches and professors, they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what the limits are of the class, and that's why it's so important to follow their instruction. But you're gonna get beat up a little bit. You're gonna be sore. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna get gassed out from the cardio. Um, and it's gonna come with frustrations. It's gonna come with stuff. And so when that happens, when you encounter those barriers, you've got to know underneath it all, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Right? What is important to you in it? And I think that there's no right or wrong answer to that personally. I'm not even remotely in the seat that I should be critiquing somebody else's why. But I think the stronger your why, the stronger your will to come back to class will always be. And yes, it's meant to be hard. That's really, I think, a product by design. And I think that if you embrace that and you take that on as a challenge, I think jiu-jitsu offers such a cool perspective, because I don't think anything else in your life is gonna challenge you as consistently and as regular and in such a unique way as jujitsu is going to. And I think that's just what an opportunity to continuously better yourself each and every day. So that's really great. So another really cool thing happened last night. We had a, new student, and when I say new, I'm still new. But we had what I call a new student, and so he was a guy coming in. By all appearances, I didn't sit and listen to his life story or anything, but um, all appearances is that this was his trial class. And one more thing, not just that he was a trial class guy, but he was an older gentleman as well. And he was very kind, very just willing to learn, just like I try to be. And he was so open to it, and you could tell he just was very humble. And so I actually got paired up with him last night, and I worked with him the entire night. Um, and that was really cool. And I think that I did a whole episode of like don't be afraid to start, and there are many challenges when it comes to being newcomers in jiu-jitsu. I'm still speaking to myself, because I'm gonna, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I'm gonna have some opportunities to be a newcomer in a new arena of jiu-jitsu here very, very soon. And I think when it comes to newcomers, just making them feel extremely welcome, introducing yourself, um, letting them know that if sometimes just the things that we take for granted or that we've become accustomed to, like teaching them to bow in, teaching them that we face away from the mat whenever we tie our belt, how to tie a belt, right? I still don't fully know how to do that, but I can at least keep it from falling off the majority of class, so I take great pride in that. And so just really being welcome, and the professors and the coaches are really good. And it's not my job to walk them through or anything like that, but just letting them know that they're not on that mat alone, and that somebody's there for them if they need it, I think helps, right? Um, and just, making sure that you're being part of an inclusive environment, an inclusive training environment, and understanding that these guys coming on the mat, I know nothing, but these guys more than likely know nothing at all. And so don't go and like go crazy on these guys or anything like that. And just kind of work at their pace. Let them feel things out a little bit. Let them get some victories and let them feel good about some stuff. And just I like to try to share positivity, not just in jujitsu and not just with, new people in life really, but just being a positive force on the mats for people. And so last night, this gentleman and myself, we were matched up and everything, and we were rolling, and I kind of felt him. I was just letting him feel it out a little bit. We were doing a lot of side control, and if you're not familiar, or if you're still learning what side control is, basically it's when your body is laid over their body, but from the opposite. So you're not parallel, and it's a lot of pressure, right? And so we wrapped up and everything, and you know, eh, my terminology is probably still awful. I just accept that for what it is at this point. But it's also kind of early in the morning. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning right now, and I'm gonna go hit the gym after this. But I'm drinking coffee and recording podcasts because that's always a pretty good way to start the day. But anyway, back to the point. Um, so we were linked up and everything, and my job being on top, I was on top in this situation, and he was on bottom. Is I wanted to try and establish a full mount, which is just basically me sitting on his chest, right? And making him uncomfortable as possible, or even maybe getting a kimura, which is like a figure four on his arm. And I felt pretty confident that I could do that very quickly. Not trying to be cocky or anything, but I just, I have a pretty decent inclination of what to do if somebody's not sitting there like beating the crap out of me in that process. And but I didn't want to do that, so I kind of let him, kind of bump me a little bit and kind of, talk him through like how to kind of shrimp his body out and stuff like that. And forgive me if that's not the what you're supposed to do, but I just wanted to kind of like talk to him about it, because you just hit a point where like just laying there, and side control especially for me can be very frustrating, as well as full mount actually. And so we were just kind of, I was letting him fill it out and everything. And one thing I taught him that I use, and if this isn't your technique, then please forgive me, but I grab the collar, and I'm very careful. I've learned this very, very intimately, not to like overextend my reach. But if they get in close and I can grab their collar, a lot of times I can trap their arm, and I can like put pressure against their neck, and it becomes very uncomfortable for them very quickly. And usually that gives me enough leverage to try to shrimp out of the situation, um, or I can at least get a leg in to establish a good half guard, which means I trap one of their legs. And I say all this like I know, like I have any inclination of what I'm doing, and I get just the crap beat out of me on a regular basis. But these are things that I think about that I think I took for granted a lot. And so when it was all said and done, we rolled the whole night and everything. And he was just had such a good attitude, man. He was a really good guy. I really hope he comes back. I was, definitely trying to encourage him to come back if it's right for him, of course. But yeah, I thought that was really cool just to have uh, a little bit older of a gentleman come in for a trial class. And I think that that's just kind of the human spirit at its best, of people continuously wanting to better themselves, try new things, never give up no matter what point of their life they're in, and just be willing to be a student again, like myself. So that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. I hope I was a good sparring partner for him as well. And that leads me to my next part of being a good training partner. One thing that my coaches and professors speak about on a very regular basis is being a good training partner, being a good sparring partner. Um, and I think that that's wildly important. Sorry, I'm adjusting myself. I'm like sitting and my leg falls asleep a lot, and so I'm very antsy whenever I sit down. It's never easy for me to sit still for very long, but so being a good training partner, I think what it looks like is it's something I talk about, and I try to bring up in episodes, but it's something that I like to bring up often, and I'll probably continue doing so. Is just I think being a good training partner is about letting your partner explore a little bit and letting them try things. I've gone up against people that are more experienced, and sometimes it just means it's a white belt like myself that is at my level or maybe one step above, or actually maybe it's like a new white belt, right? Like I'm still a new white belt, but maybe it's like somebody that's like newer to jujitsu, like new, like a month or two in, and sometimes they don't always, and I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not gonna speak like I don't do this, but sometimes the focus is just beating the crap out of each other or trying to establish dominance or trying to, hurt the other, not hurt, but try to get the technique in on the other person. And I think one thing that I've really kind of been slowing down and watching is sometimes being a good training partner is letting them, right? Not just giving it up, not just rolling over and letting them do what they want to do, applying force when necessary. But I noticed this with a purple belt that I was rolling with last week, because this guy can absolutely destroy me. I've rolled with him when he was a blue belt. I know he can destroy me. But as a purple belt, I can kind of tell he slowed down a little bit, and he was letting me do techniques that I know he could fold me up like laundry, 1,000 different ways, but he was letting me do stuff that I know he knows how to get out of, but he was being a really good training partner, and he was letting me do stuff. And my coach, who is a brown belt, when I train with him, when he's attending the class, he'll oftentimes I'll get to be his training partner, and he'll let me do the same thing. And so I think that's really important. Is that yes, these guys could beat the living crap out of me, 10 ways to Sunday, but they know how to be really good training partners, and they let me, a white belt, experiment and struggle, and they'll put pressure where they need to put pressure to make me learn the lesson in that. And there's trust me, there's a lot of those lessons I need. But I think if you're maybe a white belt like myself, something that I'm trying to very much, I guess, embody is being a good partner means letting them win. And it's not to say that you're incapable of winning, but it's letting them, giving them the confidence with the technique. It's giving them the autonomy to be able to do it. And so last night I was rolling with that new guy, and my coach brought up a good point that yeah, he's learning just this basic idea of how to get me off of him, but something I can do is I can practice all the modifications and all the different ways to do side control while he's doing that. And so, and I didn't even think of that. And I was like, oh man, that's genius. And so I started trying to like mix up my side control game, because that was an excellent opportunity to kind of have a little bit of flexibility without like trying to, be just do anything crazy, or try to come from a place of experience that I'm not. I was getting to kind of switch my positions and try different modifications for side control. And meanwhile, I'm not doing anything that's going to keep this guy from being able to learn the lesson is at the same point. So, and doing it at low pressure and stuff like that. But it was a great class. Being a good training partner, I think, is infinitely important. It's something I'm going to continuously try to develop. I'm very fortunate that at my school, I have consistently just great training partners. I mean, it is super rare that I'm matched up with somebody that's just not a phenomenal training partner, and I think that speaks volumes to the gym. That's the culture of the gym, is being a good training partner. Um, and so it has to be, because that's what the professors and the coaches are teaching, and that's what the students are doing, and that's what's instilled in us. And so I hope that I continue to be a good training partner and learn to be a better training partner, to make other people look good, as my coach and professor always say. So, all right. So another thing I wanted to talk about is learning new technique. So I think it is one of those stigmas. I think everybody kind of knows that you can learn a technique. You typically learn like around three new techniques a night, or three variations of technique each night. and then you'll go into situational sparring, and you'll instantly brain dump. And I see that on so many, like, pages or frustrations or people talking about jujitsu is like, well, I instantly forgot what I just learned. And that happens to me a lot. So I've done a couple things that I think have helped. And one of them is this podcast, journaling, right? This is a form of journaling for me, but also sharing. But another thing too, um, is changing your perspective while the technique is being demonstrated. A lot of times we always go to the wall, but the coaches and professors encourage us to, circle around or take a new angle. And so when you're learning a new technique from the coach or the professor, I do recommend changing your angle, like walk around to the other side of the room, or if you can't see, don't just assume that you'll figure it out when you're actually trying to figure it out. Is like ask questions, right? Don't ask questions beyond the technique, but also don't be afraid. Like if you're just not completely sure, um, your professor and coach, mine anyway, and I will say that I would assume that most in jujitsu are going to break it down however you need to, and they're really good about that. And one thing I love that my coach and professor do is wherever they need me to focus, they snap their finger, so my focus is on that. And so look for like those little cues, right? Um, I really pay attention once you learn. And again, I know nothing, but once you kind of get the basic concept of like, okay, I know they're gonna stagger their feet and stuff like that. So I pay attention to that side of the body and like what they're doing on that side of the body. I change my perspective. I look for like the little cues, like the snapping of the finger, so that tells me like which hand I need to focus on. And I really just kind of started looking for like the little things in the technique, listening to what they're saying and asking really good questions. I think help a lot. Um, and then I think just repetition, I think, learning new technique from your coach and your professor is just it's being humble with it, like I have to be often, but it's also just repetition, drilling on your own. I think videos, I know, again, I'm a white belt, and I know that there's also some stigma with like watching videos and then trying to come to class and learn them. But I do think videos are really powerful, like YouTube videos, or maybe you're on the Instagram watching videos or whatever. Don't go crazy with that. But there's so many people out there with so much experience that are like willing to offer different perspective on some of those techniques. And so sometimes just if you're not in class or you can't get to class, sometimes in that downtime in between classes, you can watch like videos on it, and it just offers perspective. Or maybe they're just going to talk about like some of the different um strategies they've used or some things they've learned to anticipate in that particular position. So I think that's really cool. And then moving on, so something big happened last night. Really, really exciting. I got my third stripe, and I'm gonna come back full circle with this statement that jujitsu, in my opinion, is a journey, not a destination. But it still feels really good, and I've made it pretty, at least on my Instagram and everything. I made it pretty clear that I almost quit jujitsu back in February, and I just hit my 1 year in jujitsu, which was very exciting for me. It's been the absolute greatest journey, and I might do a whole episode just dedicated to like a year of jujitsu, my first year of jujitsu. But I got my third stripe, and that's for me, this is a big one because after I had that car wreck, it didn't do as much to me physically as it did mentally, and I know that sounds really weird, but I kinda shut down for a while, after that car wreck, and it messed with me pretty hard. It was definitely, kind of a trauma for me, and, just 'cause there was a lot of anxieties associated with it, and, it was a rough period for sure. But I didn't give up, and I made myself come back, and the stripe for me, while it's nothing crazy or anything like that, it, it was my comeback stripe, right? It was like, "Hey, you're back on track, you're back in the game." And so it was just, an affirmation that I'm going in the right direction. But I just no matter how many stripes I get, no matter whatever belt ends up happening, I just want to be there to develop myself. I want to continue to be a good student, and I want to continue to learn more about myself and this world. And I absolutely love doing that. There's a huge significance to promotions and stripes and stuff like that. But I think, just listening to my coach and my professor talk, it seems like the people that tend to focus on belts and promotions, and I know I've been guilty of this. I'm being honest with you. That sometimes I get too focused on like, well, I know I'm there and whatever, and I know I can do this, but I don't ever want the why to be the stripe or the belt. I want the why to be, what it's doing for me, how jujitsu is good for me as a person and my head and what I'm learning in this journey and how it can continue to learn, help me grow. But stripes and belts are awesome because it's affirmation that you're further along in that journey of learning who you are. And it's a third stripe. It's awesome. It felt great. It meant a whole lot to me, and it was really cool because this is the first stripe I've ever gotten from my coach. I've gotten two stripes from my professor, and both of those individuals are just a league apart from the rest of the world as far as like their character and what they represent and their ability to relate to other people. But the cool thing that comes with that third stripe, is that I can now go to GB2 courses, which is a little bit more, seems like it's a little bit more sparring, but that coming back to a little bit early in the episode when talking about like being a newcomer, I'm about to be a newcomer in a new capacity that I can attend the next level of class. And these guys, I'm talking, it's every belt in there. And I know that I'm fresh meat walking in there. Um, all, jokingly, of course, but also kind of real talk at the same time. Like I'm going in there and just, whatever happens, happens. But it also comes back to another part of the episode that these guys are very experienced. They're really, I know I've watched some of them and I've even had the privilege to train with a few of them that they're really good training partners. Excuse me. And, so I'm really excited about that. It's incredibly nerve-wracking. I'm like super nervous to go to the advanced class. Um, but I'm really excited about it because I can only grow through these guys. So very, very excited, very, very grateful for this new stripe and this new opportunity to learn and grow more. And that leads me to the conclusion, or the last bit of this episode is I revealed that I have a jujitsu podcast, and I'm always super conscientious of that because I don't want people thinking that I did this because I have some level of experience that I don't. I made this podcast because I have no experience. I'm a white belt, and so I'm not a black belt or a purple belt or anything. Coming back and talking about a white belt, I am a white belt going through these growing pains, trying to share what this has been for me and everything. But the goal and the vision of this podcast is that hopefully 10, 20 years from now, I'll look back and I was like, man, that's where I was now or then, and this is where I am now. And I started this podcast just to be able to kind of A, journal my journey, and B, to share that journey with others and hopefully keep them going during their hard times or to make myself a little bit more relatable. So I invite you guys to listen to this podcast. I'm going to try to work a little bit harder to put it out there, make it more accessible, make it more available, and promote it a little bit more and market it a little bit more. Definitely got some more episodes coming up. I threw it out. I'd love to do some interviews, get some people on and everything. But I want to thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Um, and thank you so much for everyone that's invested in my journey this far. And it's been a phenomenal year, and I'll probably end up doing a whole episode dedicated to that. But if you're out there and you're struggling or you're having fun or just anything in between, make sure that you have a blast doing what you're doing. Keep coming to class, keep showing up, just show up. And if all else fails, don't forget to tap. So you guys take care, train hard, and we'll see you next time.